The 49ers made a trade the other day before the 53-man cutdown, and they traded Jonas Griffith to the Niners, to the Broncos. And that day we talked about the fact that the night before somebody had reached out to you in the league and asked what you thought about Jonas Griffith, a scout. And
he actually just said the backup linebackers in general, because I said, well, which ones? He's like, well, I think they got several that are 53-man type guys.
Well, it turns out he was right. How about that? The Niners had three players, claimed, which I believe led the league. Most players claimed in the NFL.
I would actually
he got traded.
I would actually look at it like
Justin Hilliard got claimed. Simba Webster got claimed. Dakota Shepley, the offensive lineman. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So you can technically look at it like they had four, right? Because one was traded. They're basically acknowledging the Broncos are, this guy's not going to make it to us on the waiver claim.
Yeah.
We think this guy's going to get, or we're not going to risk it missing out on a claim.
Not worth the
biscuit. So we are going to trade. So when you see these guys that get traded, you're like, wait, who's this? Who'd my team just get for a 6th or 7th round pick? That team is basically acknowledging we would claim this guy, but I don't even want to worry about the risk of getting the waiver wire and the Jags claimed him or the Lions claimed him, right? I will just trade you. It shows you what they truly – no, I think it's not really a knock on a 6th-round pick. A 6th-round pick to me is worthy to trade you right now of a guy that can make my 53 week 1.
Was there a
that's kind of the value.
Round swap in that trade too, I think?
Yeah, there's a lot of that. There's like, if the guy's a starter, a conditional can turn up to a 5th. If he's not, it's 7th. I'm not saying the Niners exactly, but I saw some different type guys like that get traded. Some swaps, some 6th, 7th. Some teams like, I give you a 5th. I give you the player in my 7th. So every player's a little different, I would imagine. But he was right. And I actually think this speaks to, I saw some quotes that Lynch had. He talked to the media yesterday. And he just said he thinks his team's pretty good, and you never know, right, until they actually play, but he feels pretty confident. And when I got that text, I was like, that's a good thing, man. And this is before, where you and I sit, unless you watch, and that's why I don't like the preseason, because you have to watch 8 million Hilliards. But, once my buddy was fired up on him. He thought Griffith was really good. He's like, that's the guy I would have wanted for us. And so it is exciting because you watch a lot of guys that are these names, right? These undrafted free agents on teams. Most of them go unclaimed and they just go practice squad. But, however many guys get claimed or traded, let's say it's 30 or 40, those are the players that get buzz in the league. Like, damn, this is a good find, undrafted free agent. You get credit for that. You get credit for Hilliard being an undrafted free agent and flipping him for a pick, right? You get credit for having guys that get claimed. That's a positive. I remember in the peak of Harbaugh, probably going into year 3, I think they had 7 players claimed. Because I remember John Dorsey, and when Andy got that job, hires John Dorsey as GM, remember the Chiefs had the number 1 overall pick the year before. They ended up taking Eric Fisher, but they were bad. So they were number 1 in the waiver wire. They claimed 7 guys that first year. And they ended up making the playoffs. They went from the number 1 overall pick to a playoff team because they traded for Alex and had Andy. But you can, to me, once you're past the 5th spot in the waiver claim, if you like a guy, if you really like him, it's probably worth just trading a 6th-round pick for the guy because you just can't risk, unless you feel pretty confident the guy's not going to get claimed like a wide receiver. But these linebackers and linemen and DBs, if they were clearly balling in camp, they get acquired. But you get credit, every team, even bad teams can have a player that gets acquired. If you got 3 or 4, it's fuck, you got a pretty good roster. It also shows did you keep the right guys? The other backup linebackers over Hilliard and Griffith, their starters are clearly the starters, but did you keep the right backups? And you don't really know.
No, I mean it's the DJ Reed situation, right? It's Caden Smith. That was a pick they nailed because if your 6th rounders playing in the league contributing for somebody, then you nailed the pick. And he's an NFL contributor now for the New York Giants, right? That was a 6th-round pick.
Yeah.
They've done this consistently now. We'll see. This is the part with John Lynch when
do they draft better later?
Yeah, I mean, it's
Elijah
such a
Mitchell
testament.
made the team,
Marcel Harris, DJ Reed were 5th and 6th rounders. Richie James, say what you want, 7th rounder. DJ Jones was a 6th rounder. Adrian Colbert was a 7th rounder. I mean, if you to
Don't
me,
they,
if you,
don't they have a tight end on their team that was like 5th?
are you thinking of Charlie
Cement?
Warner? Maybe he was a 6th rounder. Johnny.
No, I
Was there
think he
another
got
tight
some
end?
ads with sunglasses, I think, and just reading bifocals.
Huh.
Zenny, I
I'll
think
have to do some research on
does
that if they have a 5th round tight end. But it is such a credit to the scouts, right, to the front office, to John. It's when a guy comes out with John Lynch's background to become a GM of a team. One of the things you ask yourself is like, does this person? Anyone can have an opinion on the first 5 picks in the draft, right? Like John Lynch could go do if they had called John Lynch while he was doing games for Fox, like John, come do the NFL draft coverage for us. The first question naturally would be the first round or all 7, right?
Yeah.
That's part of what made Mayock so fascinating on the draft. You're like, this guy like wants to know what's going on the 7th. It's why people thought Mayock could be an NFL evaluator because the grind.
What felt like he liked talking about 5th rounders more than 2nd rounders.
Absolutely. So yeah, I mean, this is becoming. We'll see, but it is becoming part of the signature of this front office. Does Hufanga end up like playing a ton this year for them? He was a 5th rounder. What's Elijah Mitchell? In
Guy,
the
he might be the starting strong safety.
The Broncos had a 6th round pick. He didn't make their team.
I would say this about Hufanga. If Hufanga starts for the 49ers week 1, that means he won the starting job. Now, part of it would be a little injury related, right? Tart missed the entire. I don't think Hufanga starts if Tart's fully healthy from the jump, right? He would have made the team, but he had some variables on his plate. That to me is a pretty good scout. Like just from an organizational standpoint, he did not play safety. He played linebacker. So when you see Teddy Bruschi and you go, oh, Teddy Bruschi is one of the great linebackers in Patriot history. He was like a defensive tackle in college. Like when you project Mayock, I posted something on Instagram with Nate Hobbs, who was an outside corner. He's their nickel now. It's a projection. That to me is when you get like a reach around from the scouting community. Like, that was impressive, right? Like when you do Taysom Hill and turn him into like a player, like that type stuff. It's easier to be like, well, you draft fucking Penei Sewell, he plays tackle. You draft, Brandon Ayuk, he plays wide receiver. Can you take a linebacker and turn him into a safety? Right? Can you, and that's what makes basketball doesn't exist because you all kind of, I guess it's kind of become positionless. In baseball, can you just like take an outfielder and teach him how to play catcher or to guy catcher and make him a pitcher? Like that's incredible, right? What Josh Donaldson was a catcher, then became a third baseman. Hufanga becomes a starting safety in the league for several years. That's pretty unreal because I would imagine most people thought he had no position.
Given his draft position, if he's just a solid backup for the next 4 years for you, that's pretty unreal. 5th round pick. And if you and we know
into special teams making tackles,
he is bound. If you're in that position, you're bound to start football games, right? It doesn't have to be a 17-week starter, 17-game starter. If he's just the backup safety, he's going to start. I guarantee if he's their backup safety this year, he starts 6 games.
Well, yeah, because anytime that you get a 5th, 6th, or 7th rounder starting or playing for your team, you have to realize a lot of teams in the league did not think that guy was worthy of a draft pick, right? Or didn't value that player. Because if they did, he wouldn't have lasted that long. I would say definitely 6th and 7th rounders, right? You can say 5th. That's still like there's still a lot going on. But once you get to the 6th or 7th round, if I get a 6th or 7th, like Richie James in the 7th, right? That's just really incredible. Like I think Hunter Renfrow, guys like that, right, in the 5th. Hufanga, like there are people in the NFL, I'm sure, in every building that like guys like that. Because if you watch USC, and I feel like I've fucking watched, for a team that doesn't win that much, it's like, God, I consume a lot of their content. That guy made plays for years, right? 15, he was their big hitter, made tackles. That guy was just making Hunter Renfrow, you watch. But these guys, like they have a fatal flaw. You go, he's too slow, he's too small. Hufanga, it's like he's not fast enough, what position? All it takes is truly one team to like, when you take a guy in the 5th round, but deep down you're like, that was one of my favorite picks. I think this guy's going to be a player.
Well,
right?
How many teams had a take on Justin Hilliard? Every single one of them. Why? Because he spent 6 years at Ohio State. Okay, now you used to tell me you'd go into a school and you wouldn't really write a guy up until he was draft eligible. Well, he played 3 years at Ohio State after becoming draft eligible. So he had 4 years. He had 4 years that you would have scouted him. His redshirt sophomore year, which was his 3rd year, he was eligible to be drafted, played 11 games that year. then his redshirt junior year, then his senior year, then another senior year. So everyone goes to Ohio State, right?
He
They got a
played with any
million
good players, you
players
think,
who
over that
scout.
time?
Like this guy didn't. Well, that's some nobody out of nowhere, right?
That I would say that happens. That guy to me, I mean, all the guys I listed are at big schools, right? So it's a little different. Like you're like, how'd you find Hufanga? You mean he's at USC, right? Or Renfro? You mean when I was writing up the 17 other players for Clemson?
Yeah.
It's a.
Oh, I
when you
watched the
find-
national championship game.
I would say it's pretty incredible. Like there's even a level of like if you find a Hufanga, a Renfro from like a non-power 5, like that's just like damn, that's a good pick, right? It's not a bad pick when you find those guys, but when they are at major programs, like how many evaluations on Hufanga were there? Like every team in the league had 5 or 6 people wrote him up on every team, right? He's unavoidable. Now they picked them. I'm not trying to diminish the pick, but overall they're doing a really good job scouting like the 4th through 7th. It's just they're gonna, for them to be really good this year, they're clearly like the Lances, the Ayuks, the Debos, right, are gonna need to Bosa,
But part of this,
McGlinchey.
what do we say about them when you think big picture and you compare them to 19? It's like, well, is their defense as good as 19? Part of getting really good on defense again is just these guys just replenishing your team and depth, man. Like that to me, that's the Bosa's. The depth is the whole. We saw it happen last year. The depth, the competitive depth is when you talk to coaches this time of year, they talk so much about the depth of their teams because they know it's a long year and guys are going to get hurt. It's like, well, I could, coaches love saying shit. I got 9 offensive linemen that could start for me. Like that means as much to them as having 5 that can start for them. It's better. I mean, obviously, it's better because they know they're not going to get through the season with 5.
Well, I was watching some of Howie Roseman's press conference, and they asked him about Landon Dickerson, right? Who's their 37th overall pick, but he's coming off a torn ACL and he's coming back like this week. And they're like, do you vision him as is there a chance he won't play this season? Well, and Howie's like, well, ideally, if all 5 of our starting offensive linemen stay healthy right now, he will not play a snap. But he's like, knock on wood. Have you guys watched our team the last couple of years? Like guys go down. So if guys go down and he's progresses and healthy, yeah, he'll play. But it's a hard thing to say. It's like we love our depth. Yeah, we love the guy because we know that like we feel pretty good. He's going to be a starter. I'd say the offensive line probably even more than the defensive line. Like you have to know your backup center and backup swing tackle. It feels like every single team that guy plays some games. And when I say play game, he doesn't rotate in like a slot receiver. He fucking starts, right? Yeah. Can you win a game if this guy has to start at right tackle for a month?
Well, how many teams have a backup lineman to start the year play more snaps than one of their original 5? I don't know, half of them, maybe more than half, 70% of them.
Happens a lot.
It's happening to somebody.